Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the Game Dev Tutorials. Today, I wanted to just add skills, but I realized I really couldn't do that very well without effects. So we're going to do both today, which makes this kind of a longer day. And I thought about doing effects, but without skills, there's not much to test it with, yada yada yada. Anyway, like I said, a little longer today. Do my best to make it quick, but this one's going to be longer than the last couple. Well, than normal, I'll say, because 2 ago was A star, and that one was almost an hour. Anyway, today we are going to add the effect 2D and pipeline for it. Why effect 2D? Well, I put 2D on everything, but also there is something in Monogame called an effect, so you need to add something to it or completely rename it in order for you to have your own class that doesn't conflict with what Monogame has. And it does. The Monogame's effect 2D doesn't do what we're going to be. Effect class doesn't do what we're going to be doing. All right. So we also are going to create flame circle and target circle as effects. We are going to create skills and the flame wave skill. So this first thing is just going to be a little circle of flame. It's not overly complicated, but it will do what we need. We're going to change tower to the T key so that we can use 1 through 0 as our abilities. Eventually we'll make a quick bar and all kinds of stuff, but this will accommodate that. So building towers will be T, and then we're going to add the code that's needed to run the skills from Hero. I didn't put that in there, but it'll be in Hero that we're doing most of that work. Okay. So by now, you probably guys have noticed that most of what I do ends up kind of in a specific pattern. Something like base class, child class, child class, child class, right? And then eventually you might have a grandchild class or a great-grandchild class, right? But like in general, it's this loop. And then the base class has a loop for update and draw in the appropriate spot, so either in world or in player or in hero or whatever, and that pretty much takes care of it. If it's in world, oftentimes there will be a global that passes to it, so we're going to be following that same format for this stuff. There's not a whole lot of new information per se today. It's just going to be interacting with new things today. That's, I guess, the best I can describe it. So let me take those off, and then let's get thinking. Oh, there's my phone. Okay. So today we're going to start with 2 images. I guess we can leave that back up. We'll have 2 new images today. This I got from the very first game I ever made, which I actually am porting, because it was made for Windows Phone. Just it wasn't really made to make money. It was made just because I wanted to see if I could make a game, and so it was done in XNA. And at the time, the only thing XNA could get onto was Windows Phone. So now, obviously, you have Monogame. Monogame can then port to just about everywhere. But so this comes from that. Figured I'd mention my little first game. The first game is called Delinar TD. It was a little tower defense game. So I'll probably be re-releasing that on Steam, and then maybe even to like the Windows Store and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm looking at it. I'm not really, again, trying to make money off it. I just don't like the fact that XNA games got deprecated and they're going away, and so my first game is going away, and that's not a good feeling. I just want my games to stay alive. Now, this is my little targeting circle. It's terrible. Okay, I know it's terrible. You don't have to say it's terrible. I get it. This is what I made, though. It looks kind of like a little runic circle, but terrible. But anyway, that's where we're going to target, and then this puppy will go off in that same area. Okay, so we'll have those 2 things, and I will give those to you, of course, as always. But let's get those put in. So in 2D right here, we're going to add folder effects, and then we are going to make those content copy of newer. Yay. Okay, so we have the art that we need. I'll leave that open so I can read them later. We need to go in to our stuffs here, and we're going to create the effects folder. This is obviously for our source code, and then we're going to have effects here as well. So just create a new class. Well, an effect is similar to everything else, right? Yeah, an effect is similar to everything else. Let's just we'll copy over something simple. What's simple? Unit's pretty simple. Paste. No, that didn't go where I wanted to. It's alright, we'll rename it first, otherwise it'll yell at us. So we're going to rename it effects. Effect. No, effect 2D. Don't forget the 2D. Because again, Monogame has its own effect, and you don't want to be fighting with that the whole time. Okay, effect. Let's move it where it belongs. Grab that. Let's say not as similar as I thought. So this is going to be animated 2D, and now we're going to have some other issues. So owner ID doesn't matter, it's just an effect. What is this? Color. So color dot white. Okay, and then let's see, let me bring up my prompt real fast and have it up at all, and I don't want to mess things up and then have to spend forever redoing them. So effect. Great. Alright, the things we need in our effect is we need to know if it's done. So bool done, this should probably be public. We need to know if no, that's it. We need a timer. We don't need path nodes. We don't need to know who the owner is, but we do need to know how long to run it. So for instance, let's say we have an effect that goes on the ground and burns dudes. That's kind of what we're trying to build today, but we're not going to get all the way through it. We're just going to have it do one attack. But let's say, you know, it burns people every so often. And then you have a talent point that ups how long it lasts, so it gives it basically an extra tick. Well, your effect doesn't know any of that, so it's nice to pass in how long you want it to last. And then you can line the two up, and then they'll run simultaneously, and it'll be pretty. Okay, so we have that. Now, initially we are going to set done equals false. We are going to set the timer equals new MC timer MSEC, which is that one coming in there. Okay. For updating, it's pretty simple stuff. It's literally just stay active for as long as the timer is, and then be done. Right? That's going to be the base effect part. This is wrong because we pulled from something not as similar. Alright, so to do that, it's just timer.update timer, and then if timer.test, and then done equals true. Very simple stuff. This is a very basic effect update, right? Just go for as long as it is, be done. Cool. If we want to override that, we can override it. It's not a big deal. But in this case, at least, we're good with this. We don't need all this information because effects don't do anything except for be pretty, right? Or even if they're not pretty, there's something on the screen. They're not. The other thing, we don't need a path. We don't need to move the unit. And our draw is good. So that is our super simple effect 2D class. Stuff will get added to this over time, but I'm trying to make this as simple as possible right now. Okay, we got that. now we need to do kind of the pipeline stuff real fast. And we've done all this before. We're going to just do some more of it. So something like pass effect. And then in world, we're going to have the adds. Add building, add mob, add projectile. So it's simple like this one right now. It's not like the other ones that have to worry about where it's getting added. So effect. And then, oh, we didn't create that. So public list effect 2D effects equals new effects. Yay. Okay. Now we can go back and finish this. So effect 2D and new effects, and then let's put this in alphabetical order. E goes here. So alright, haven't been doing that on these videos for whatever reason. I haven't been reordering them, so I apologize. Let's try to remember to do that. It'll make things easier. Or if you just don't care and you don't want them in alphabetical order and you always just kind of search for everything, that's fine. I just don't like to do that, so it's not part of my flow. So alright, so we got that, and then now we need to link these up here. So game globals dot pass effect, which we just created a second ago, and then, or a minute ago maybe, equals add effect, right? So that's great. That's our quick pipeline. We pass something in here, it hits effects, it comes through, it gets into there. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't do the updates and the and the draws. That would be good. So let's do this. It's very similar to projectile, almost identical, except for it just says effects, right? And I think I have lost my IntelliSense potentially. Let's see. Let's see if we've lost our IntelliSense. Nope, we haven't. Good. If I had, then I would have to restart it because I just can't. My brain just cannot handle not having the IntelliSense anymore when programming. Okay, so that's the update. Effects. All of it's correct. Yay. So literally all we did was take this projectiles and paste it and change them out. No big deal. So if we can do that, then we can probably do the exact same thing down here. Now, effects are the very last thing to draw other than your UI, right? And don't draw them over your UI. You will just make some people mad. So we'll do that. Cool. So that's our effects. Woo-woo. Our base class for effects. Everything, I believe, is in now. So what we need to do is we need to go and we need to add our two effects that we mentioned. So in here, we're going to say add new item. And here, we're going to say target circle or targeting circle. Cool. Grab our includes. Fix our namespace. Gotten a couple of questions on the comments saying this or that isn't there. A couple of times it's just been the namespace, so make sure you take that stuff off. Anytime it tells you a file doesn't exist or a class name doesn't exist, usually it's going to be namespace. It also could be that you just spelled it wrong, but I just wanted to mention that because I have gotten a couple of questions about that. So cool. So targeting circle, what we're going to do with that is we're going to say public targeting circle, and we only want the position and the dims of the targeting circle. So let's say vector2 pose, and I'll explain mine in a second. Vector2 dims, great, and then we'll have base. Ooh, we gotta add the base. Like 2D. Okay, so in here we are going to have 2D effects, and then target circle That's why I looked. Sometimes I don't call them the same thing all the time. All right, cool. And then pose dims frames, just one frame. New vector 2 1 1, and then how long to run it? I don't know. 400 milliseconds sounds good. A little less than half a second, whatever. We'll work on that, and we can polish that out later. That's not important for this exact moment. And then that's actually it. So this is just going to be a timed thing. You'll see that we'll be resetting this as we're targeting. But so this is as simple as it is. It's just feeding in basically the time, the frames, and the image. That's all we have to do. Yay. Cool. Let's save that real fast, because when we're going to copy paste this right now, if you don't save it, then you'll basically have an empty class. And then we're going to have flame circle. Okay, copy that. Paste. This one is named Fire Nova. Remember, I made that like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. So that's why it's named that. I could rename it, but anyway. And actually, I didn't make it. I made the game that long ago. An artist made the art. Kyle Peters, by the way, that's the name of the artist that made the art. Good guy. Really like him. Still work with him. Cool. Yeah, that's right. And then we need just a change to the update. So public, boy, typing would be good. Public override update. Cool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say the rot, so rotation, plus equals float, because that's what a rotation is, and we're about to put in some doubles, so we have to cast it. So pi over 60.0f. So it takes, at 60 frames per second, this takes 1 second to make a loop. Or no, because that would be 2 pi. So this would take 2 seconds to make a loop. Maybe we should make that faster. So times 2. 0.0f. Okay, so this is only going to run for 4/10 of a second. So this takes a second to go around. If it's at 60 frames, I don't even know what we're at, to be honest. I don't remember if we set it or not. So this is going to go around 40% of a circle rotation. Okay. It should be fine. So if we can update it, we can do whatever. You want to change this, you add to this number if you want it to go faster, or this number, or you subtract from it if you want it to go slower. Pretty simple stuff. I like to, when I'm dealing with rotations, think in pi. Why? Because, pi is easier to think about than linear numbers. I don't think of pi as a linear number. It is, but it's related to a circle, right? So, anyway, it gives you more exact answers by doing it this way. So, if you took this and you said, okay, I want it to rotate 3 times, no matter what, then you would say, well, I want it to go 3, and then divide it by your frame rate, and then you'd have to correct for the actual time. That's it. Then you can get it to do, very specific things. That's our flame circle. All it's going to do is rotate real fast, and then it's going to go away. Okay? Very simple stuff. That should take care of all of our effects that we need to do. How are we doing time-wise? Wow. Okay, so we're already at 20 minutes. So, or very close. So, great. It's going to be quite long. All right. Next, we are going to come in here into unit, and we're going to say, because all units can have skills, right? And we're going to say add, and this one's different than normal, so we're just going to start scratch here. Skill, right? So a skill, we're just going to quickly add that and get our includes. And then let's think about what a skill is, right? A skill is something that happens, right? But it's a something that happens that affects other things. So, for instance, like a skill could be a heal spell, or it could be bullet rain in some kind of bullet hell game, or it could be, you know, a slashing attack from a warrior. It could be all kinds of things. So it's a something that affects other somethings and normally has an effect associated with it. That's, I guess, a decent way. I mean, I hadn't really thought about how to say that, so that's my first thought about what a skill is. So that thing has an effect associated. So let's add an effect for targeting effect really quickly, because we want to be able to target. Okay, not everything's going to have an area effect, but for things that do, we want to have a targeting effect. And rather than calling area effect, we're going to call it target effect, because maybe there's a different kind of effect that you want. So maybe one area effect is a circular one, and one's a cone one, and maybe another one is just a straight, I don't know, cylinder, for lack of a better term. You have some of those in like League of Legends and stuff. So we want that. We need to know when it's done. So, but we are going to protect, and we don't need to know if it's active. We are going to protect our active one, and you'll see why in a second. Bool div, and then oops, semicolons are good. Public bool done. Done doesn't have extra stuff happening on it, so we can just leave it public for now. So public skill. Fingers are getting out of the right spots. Okay, we don't actually need to pass anything into the skill for now. 99% sure that will change over time. But skills actually are different for like every game. A lot of this stuff is the same. So like a unit has very similar stuff in it all the time. Skills actually don't always have the same stuff in them. Different games are going to have very different skill classes. So keep that in mind. So target effect equals new targeting circle. And in there we're going to have no real position. So just vector 2, 0, 0. And then the dimensions. So new vector 2. Now you can change that if you want. This is something you would pass in as you delineate your skill if you wanted to. You could change those. Okay, so I told you we needed to protect active, which means we're going to have properties. Region, and then so it's public bool active. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I always use a capital for my properties, because properties are very similar to functions, and it lets me delineate between the two. When I look at something and it comes up in IntelliSense and it has the capital, it lets me know, oh, I'm dealing with something different. This is not a regular variable, right? So I use camel case starting with a lowercase for just a regular variable, and I use camel case starting with an uppercase for functions and properties. To my mind, they're very similar things. I understand they're different. You should understand they're different. You can't pass parameters into active. You can only pass value into properties. You can only pass values. So they're kind of an in-between between functions and variables is what a property is. But this helps me out a lot, and I hope that will get you thinking. I would find a way to differentiate between variables, normal variables, and properties if you can. So get doesn't do anything special. It's just return active. Set is we're going to have interesting stuff. But first, let's say active equals value, right? So that will get it set. We need that. Now, what's special about active? Well, when something's active, we want to be targeting. Well, we have this targeting effect. Well, when do we want to start showing that targeting effect? Well, we want to start showing that targeting effect when the thing becomes active. So that's why we wanted this property. We didn't necessarily want this property because we don't want anybody ever looking at active, obviously, because we set a get. Okay? But what we don't want is another class calling active and this step that we're about to write not happening. We want it to happen. So when is this? When does this happen that we want it to start this effect showing? So we want it to happen when the value is true, meaning active is about to become true, and not active. So active is false currently. It's about to be true. Now we need to say, okay, let's show our target. So targeting effect dot done equals false. And then game globals dot pass effect target effect. Is that what I called it? Yeah, target effect. Okay. So can you do this another way? You absolutely can. You can do this lots and lots of ways. Okay. You could draw your targeting circle down here in draw when we get to it. The problem with that is that you are going to not necessarily be drawing in the correct order. Remember I told you effects, you want them to draw over the top of everything. So now you would need 2 draws for your skills. And you would have to have to be able to find said skills that are active way back in world. So it's quite a lot of work to do it the other way. I'm going to take advantage of the pipeline we just wrote, even though this one doesn't necessarily fit so well. And you're going to see, because I have to do things like set the done value and all that kind of stuff, and we have to keep track of the effect. You wouldn't have to do that if you did it the other way. So there's other things that other issues this causes. I haven't found the cleanest way to do this, to be honest, but this is the cleanest I've come up with. I am sure there's better ways, to be honest. Okay, let's see. Public virtual void update, right? Because we need that. That's an important one. What's in our update? Well, we always, or almost always, want offsets, so. And then we are, at least for the purpose of this, and I think we're going to need to expand this because I've been thinking about it more, and obviously you're going to have potentially positive things, so you don't just want enemy. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to say player enemy. Okay. So we need to have access to what the enemy characters are, and we need to have access to the offset. Cool. In skills update, what are we doing? Right? What are we doing? Well, a skill is not the thing that you see, right? Or it shouldn't be, because you should be using effects for that. Or you should be running an animation on your character. Or you should be releasing a projectile to do lots of things, right? The skill itself should not be, in my opinion, displaying anything other than maybe an icon, and we'll get to that later. We'll add an icon to this when we do skill bars. But what we do need to do is we need to make sure we can target with it, or run the AI with it, right? There's 2 things there. So active, if it needs to be active and not done. If it does that, then we're going to run the targeting. But we'll get to that in a second. Public virtual void reset. That'll be important. So reset just puts active equal false and done equal false. Okay. Now we have our targeting one. Public virtual void targeting. So targeting is going to use these same bits here. That's the whole purpose of taking it in. And so we'll say targeting offset and enemy. Okay, got that? Cool. Pretty simple stuff overall. So our basic targeting, meaning this is not a specific child class, is literally just going to set crap to done when you click. And this is so that if you forget to set it, you don't run into a bug where you can't get back control of your input. Okay? Because we are going to lock out part of your input while you're targeting. Alright, so to do that, I'm going to say globals dot mouse dot left click release, and then we're going to say active equals false and done equals false. Boy, I can't spell. Cool. And then if you want to, you can do that. Sorry, that. You don't need to in this case, but it's fine if you want to. They'll do the exact same thing currently. Getting used to continuing to use your properties when you have them is a good idea. In fact, if I wanted to get real picky, I would have set that thing to private, and I would make sure that you must use the property. That's the whole purpose of it being there. Okay, and then draw. We don't have a draw, right? We don't need to draw skills. I already mentioned that before. Yay. So this is our simple skill, right? This is as simple as it's going to get. We will add to this. It's not fully baked or whatever at this point, but this is our skill. So we have it. It's in. Now we need a specific one, right? We need to add a folder for skills, and then we need the skill that we are going to be using to test that we got all of this code correct. So we're going to add a new item, and that's going to be flame wave. If your theme is more, modern, it could be bullet rain or something, whatever it is you want it to be. I am a bit more of a fantasy guy myself, sci-fi as well, so I guess that could be bullet rain or lasers rain or whatever it could be. Just have your fun with it, add your theme to it. Come up with your own title. You're welcome to use mine. I don't care. I'm just mentioning it. That's all. Okay, we got this. Put that here. Fix our namespace. Add public. And make sure that it knows it is a skill. Right? Alright. So we know there was no real constructor there. And you don't have to put this when there's no constructor, but I like to. Right? I like to put the blank base because it's super rare that I actually end up with no variables coming in my constructors on classes. Super, super rare. So it's already there typed, ready to go when we're ready to use it. So what are we changing here? We are changing the targeting. The targeting is what we're doing with this skill. So eventually you should wrap your targeting up. When you have multiple kinds of targeting, you should actually create targeting classes. That way, when you're ready to add another circular area targeting ability, skill, you can just say, hey, there's my targeting system. Oh, all done. Look at there. All done. That was perfect. And it's, 5 seconds. But in this case, this video is already running long, so we can refactor that later. I just wanted to mention it. So mouse dot left click release, which we did on another one. So what happens in here? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. The simpler part is what happens when we have not clicked to send our skill out. So our targeting effect needs to get updated. So targeting effect dot position equals globals dot mouse. What did I do? I'm in the constructor. That was dumb. Let's try this again. Public override targeting. And we do not want this. We do not want the base class getting called. Okay. That was kind of a bug that would have sucked. New mouse pose. Okay. And then we're going to subtract the offset that's coming in. And that's actually what got me to realize about the bug. I would have figured it out pretty quick because I would have tried to pull offset out and it wouldn't have been there because there's no offset coming in there. So there's our offset that comes in. This gives the position in game space of where the effect is showing. That will always be on the screen. You could do this effect, specifically this effect in screen space if you felt like it. But then you're going to have your effects know the difference between game space and screen space. In this case, I left it in game space because right now the other one needs to know about game space, so I only wanted to do one. So all of the things are going to stay in game space. Pretty simple. Okay, and then for every time that we get into this part of our statement, we want to reset the timer. So remember I told you that this one didn't really fit very well on what we're doing? This is why. You could be targeting this skill for 20 minutes if you felt like it. And you still want that targeting effect to stay there. So instead of trying to guess how long you want the targeting circle to be there, I'm just going to reset it to 0 all the time, and then I'm going to tell it to be done when it's done. So this is not really a timed effect. We're using timed effect, but we're kind of jerry-rigging it a bit. Okay? Alright, so what happens when we do click the mouse? Well, we need to spawn the effect, which is that flame circle we talked about. We need to set our targeting effect to done. We need to set the skill to done, and we need to hurt the enemies that are in said circle, right? So this is our more complicated piece. It's not complicated, but it's our more complicated piece. So targeting effect dot done equals true. We want to be done, so done equals true. We want to not be active anymore. False. And then now you'll see why it's important to have these two in a minute. I will show you, I promise. And then well, so I guess in my head we're taking away one effect, then I need to make sure to remember to put the other effect in. That's why I'm putting them right next to each other. Game globals dot pass effect. So new flame circle. Wow, FLAME circle. Yay. And then where are we going? That's position. Dimensions is easier. We want it to match the targeting circle dimensions. Even if the targeting circle dimensions are a bug, you would rather, and I'm telling you this from experience, have your user target the space that it says it's going to target, and have the bug being on the targeting circle, then have the bug being on the effect. So if you just marry the two together and force them to always be the same, then you'll know your bugs are always going to be, if you have one, your bug is going to be on your flame, on your targeting circle. And the user won't even know it's a bug, because they'll be like, oh, targeting circle, click, I hit things where the targeting circle said I was going to hit. Yay! You know, like they don't even know necessarily that you have a bug. It's a bug that you will have to hunt down on your own from your own testing. But at least people won't feel like, oh my god, the game is so buggy. And trust me, you will get that left, right, and center when you go to release a game. Even things that aren't bugs, people call bugs. It's interesting. So globals.mouse. So it's this. Why am I typing again? So the exact same place that our target circle was is where we're putting our other effect, right? Exact same space. Cool. Now that takes care of all of the adding and removing effects and skills and all that kind of stuff. What we need to do now is make sure that we hit the mobs that we're going after. So have our for loop. This is where we need to know about enemy. So int I equals 0, I less than enemy dot units dot count. I plus plus. Yay. So we're only going to do it sometimes, and that sometimes is going to be when it's within the circle. Well, how do we find out if something's within a circle? Well, that's super simple. It's about the easiest shape in the world to figure out if something's inside of it. You just do distance of the radius. We have the diameter. Diameter is that or that. Since it's a circle, they're the same. If you are doing an oval, you're going to have to run crazy math. If you are doing a square, there is some cool geometry eventually I'll show you guys that allow you to turn the square into two triangles and then pick what's inside. Picking is when you click a mouse and then it tries to figure out what you're pointing at. That's a term we'll go over later when it's important. Something's wrong here. It doesn't like... I have one less pren than I should. Okay. 3 prens at the end. So, we just use our distance formula. Globals dot get distance. Enemy. Ooh, hey. Enemy dot units I dot position. And then that is juxtaposed to this again. Remember, this is the center of everything. You probably just created a vector somewhere to do this, but okay, got that. And then I feel like no, that looks right. Okay, cool. No worries. And then new vector 2, and then so that is the distance formula. So the distance from that point that is allowed is that it's less than. Well, I'm doing the complete wrong thing here. Less than or equal to target effects. And I mentioned this earlier. My brain kind of farted. So it needs the distance needs to be less than or equal to that. I freaked out because it was in an if statement, and I was thinking for some reason I wasn't. Apologies. So less than the radius, which is half of this. This is the diameter. We need the radius. And then if this happens, we are going to say enemy dot units I dot get hit, I think is what we called it. And for right now, we'll just pass in a 1. That's fine. Means it won't kill the big spider straight up, but it'll kill all the other things. Alright, so now we have our flame wave. Very cool. We have skills. We have an effects pipeline. We've done a lot of work on this one. But we're still not done, right? We have to come into Hero, and we have to get this pipeline all working. So first thing we're going to do, and I mentioned this earlier, is the 1. Let's just copy this real quick because we need it in a minute. Okay, 1 is just turning into T for tower, and then we'll have a new 1. Alright. Now, when we push 1, what do we want to have happen? Well, we need to assign a skill that we're running. So up here, actually no, in unit. We want to go to unit. So go to definition. In here, we need skill public skill current skill, and then we also need public list skills equals new skill. Cool. Alright. In Hero, we need to add this skill to the list. Technically, you don't need this list right now, but I just felt like it was too sloppy if I didn't add it. So, skills.add new flame wave. Okay. So, simple stuff. So when we come down here and we want to set it to the current skill, we say current skill equals skills 0. Later, this will be in a loop that is checking for input that has to do with your quick bar. Right now, this is more of a hard code scenario, so just keep that in mind. And then current skill dot active equals true. So remember, we wanted this property. Watch this. If you don't know, lowercase active is not accessible. And watch this. It'll complain at you. Skill active is inaccessible due to the protection level. Right? It's straight up telling you that's protected. And at that point, you should be looking for your property. So I know I've kind of avoided doing properties. I think it did one other time, but this is important for keeping your code clean. And I am going to start implementing more and more of protected stuff. I very, very, very rarely use private, but I am going to start implementing more protected So I didn't want to do it early. I wanted you guys to feel comfortable with our coding style. But now I am going to start adding a little bit more. Some people are getting a little frustrated in the comments that I'm being a little too generic. And fair enough. You know, I get it. And my goal with this is not necessarily to give you guys the greatest programming on the planet to work from. It's to give you guys programming that hopefully you can understand in quick fashion. If you can't understand what I'm telling you, then it doesn't do me much good to give you the code. You won't know how to use it. You may use it in the one instance correctly, like copying the way I use it, but if you can't understand it, then I've screwed up. So more important to me is that you guys can understand the code. But I wanted to explain this. That's important, being able to do those things. So now, when we trigger that, our targeting system will trigger on. Yay. Awesome. That's what we want. Now, we have our clicking. Where's our clicking? Here's our clicking. Okay. So we can fire, right? But when we're targeting, we don't want to be able to fire because our left click is now going to be used towards our skill. So we need to stop this from working when we're trying to target, when we're trying to do our skill. So what's the best way to do that? Well, in my mind, it would be check if current skill equals null. Hey, there's no current skill. Go on with the shooting of normalness. And then from there, we are going to have an else, which is where we update our current skill. Current skill dot update, and then we have offset and enemy already coming in from our hero. Okay, so cool. Now, how do we get current skill to go away, right? That's important. Getting current skill to go away, we're going to do it in two different ways. First is just to say, if current skill dot done, then we're going to say current skill dot reset, so it's ready to go again. And so any variable that you need initialized needs to go into your reset. So it's ready to be used again. And if you have a timer in here, your reset would not be in there, like a cooldown timer, right? You would not put that in reset. You might have a second reset function that's like reset all or something if you needed to reset those kinds of things. Okay, so current skill equal null, right? We're done. Skill's done. It's over. We can go back to shooting stuff. Cool. We want to do one more. So you're targeting, and you just want to not actually fire the skill. Let's say you have mana requirements, or you have, stamina requirements, or whatever it is that you have. It's not just a purely cooldown based game, whatnot, and you just don't want to shoot. Whatever your reason, you don't want to shoot that skill off. Well, we want to be able to get rid of it. Well, a couple ways to do that would either be push the escape button or right click. In this case, we're going to do right click. So, escape is more common with a strategy game. Anyway, globals.mouse.right click, and then that is going to do these same things right there. Okay, so right click gets all that dealt with. So now we should be able to push number 1 to activate our skill. We should then not be able to fire, which we can't really test because, we're going to be targeting. But you'll see that we won't fire when we left click. And during this time, we should be seeing the targeting circle. After we click and it's done, we should see the effect. We should see mobs dying. With that effect should last for 0.4 of a second. And we should be able to fire directly after. That's what we're testing right now. If that's all correct, then we did it. We have a working skill and effect pipeline. So let's see. All right, I'm going to push 1 right now. There's that. Great. I'm going to click. Good. And I can fire. Good. So now let's see. That's a killable guy. He's dead. Shouldn't kill these spiders till the 3rd hit. They're all dead. Looky there. Okay. So that is a simple skill setup, okay? Guys, if you enjoyed it, please make sure you push like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I put a lot of time into these, and the more people I can reach with them, the better. If you are getting any kind of professional, help from this, please consider Patreon. A few dollars goes a long way. Even $1 a month would be huge for what I can do. I am probably going to start using my old games art in this project, just like I did with this fireball, because again, we made it years and years and years ago, and I don't feel like releasing it's a problem. But it's really old art, and I actually am probably going to do a video showing kind of some of the problems trying to port your game over from 8 years ago. But anyway, just consider the support. If you want to check out our Twitter, I post everything there, so if you're not getting your alerts on Facebook, they're posted there. Also, liking things on Twitter, liking the post will help it reach more people, so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm going to keep doing this regardless. A little bit of support would be really nice. Thank you guys. Have a great day. I will see you guys soon.